You ever notice how people love to sound smarter than they actually are? It's one of the oldest hobbies in human history. People think it makes them look sophisticated, educated, enlightened. But all it really makes them look like is a parrot in a graduation gown. Because that's what it is. Half the time they're just repeating words they heard somebody else say. Big words, fancy phrases, strung together like Christmas lights with half the bulbs burned out. They don't know what the hell they're saying, but it sparkles enough to fool the neighbors. People love that. They love the costume of intelligence. That's what it is. It's a costume, just like putting on a clown suit, only less honest. At least the clown knows he's a clown. These people walk around with $10 words spilling out of 5-cent heads. They'll say things like, "Oh, well, actually," the epistemological framework of human consciousness suggests. And then you realize they're talking about how they don't like the taste of diet soda. That's all it is. Word salad with no dressing. And you can always tell when someone's pretending to be smart because they never explain anything simply. Real smart people, they can explain nuclear physics to a 6-year-old. The fake one can't even explain a peanut butter sandwich without turning it into a TED Talk. The application of hydrogenated vegetable oil onto carbohydrate-based matter represents a significant nutritional transaction. Just say you made a damn sandwich. Nobody's giving out awards for turning lunch into a dissertation. And people love to toss around words they don't even understand. You ever meet someone who uses the word a paradigm in every other sentence? Paradigm this, paradigm that. Half the time they think it's some kind of new vitamin. I'm taking Paradigm C every morning. Helps with my energy. No, it doesn't. It just helps you sound like a jackass or a synergy. That's another one. Everything's got synergy. Your office has synergy, your company has synergy, your dog's got synergy. No, it doesn't. Your dog has fleas. The word of synergy just means you got a bunch of people in the same room who don't like each other pretending they do. But people say it because it makes them sound like they know something. They wear the word like jewelry. It's the same with phrases. People don't say, "I don't know." No, that's too naked, too honest. Instead, they say it's a very complex issue. There are many layers to consider. Translation, "I don't know." Or they'll say, "It's really about perception." Translation, "I don't know, and neither do you. But I'd like to sound like I've been meditating in a cave for 6 months." People think if they make ignorance sound poetic, it becomes wisdom. Like ignorance went to finishing school. And the best part is, everyone else goes along with it. Because most people are afraid to admit they don't know what's going on either. So when somebody throws out a big word, everybody else just nods their heads. Yes, epistemological. Brilliant point. Meanwhile, not a single person in the room knows what the hell was just said. It's like a magic trick. Only instead of pulling a rabbit out of a hat, they're pulling nonsense out of thin air. And everyone applauds like it was Shakespeare. This whole thing goes way back. Even in ancient times, people had their version of this. You think every guy in a toga quoting philosophy really knew what he was talking about? No. Half of them were just making it up as they went along. Yes, the cosmos is but a reflection of the inner man. Yeah, sure it is, Aristotle, now pass the wine. But because they said it with a straight face, people thought, "Oh, wow, this guy's a genius." Meanwhile, he's just stalling until he thinks of something else to say. Same scam, different century. The thing about pretending to be smart is it's easier than being smart. Being smart takes effort, reading, thinking, questioning. Pretending just takes a thesaurus and good posture. You don't have to know anything. You just have to look like you know something. That's why people adopt this fake intellectual voice. You know the one. Slow, deliberate, lots of pauses, like they're carefully selecting each pearl of wisdom for your fragile little brain. It's the same voice they'd use if they were explaining how to screw in a light bulb. Well, when we consider the historical trajectory of illumination devices, just turn the damn thing clockwise, Professor. And you ever notice the vocabulary inflation? Regular words aren't good enough anymore. Nobody says use. Now it's utilize. Nobody says a help. Now it's a facilitate. Nobody says a try. Now it's endeavor. If you're endeavoring to facilitate the utilization of something, you're still just trying to use it. But it sounds smarter, so people keep doing it. The English language has turned into a gym membership. Every word has to bulk up. Nobody wants to say they're confused, they're experiencing cognitive dissonance. Nobody's tired anymore, they're suffering from fatigue. You're not tired, you're lazy. Take a nap and shut up. You can tell how fake it is because the smarter people pretend to be, the dumber their actual decisions get. These are the same people who will give you a 20-minute lecture on the biomechanics of nutrition while eating 3 bags of potato chips. The ones who say, I'm very familiar with the socioeconomic ramifications of waste management, but can't take the trash out without ripping the bag. Intelligence in costume is always about presentation, never about application. They want the appearance, not the results. Not the results. And the costume gets heavier the more insecure the person is. You ever notice that? The less someone knows, the bigger their words get. It's like overcompensating. A guy who really knows what he's doing doesn't have to say a word. He'll fix the engine, fix the pipe, solve the problem, and that's that. The guy who doesn't know what he's doing, he'll drown you in jargon while he breaks it even worse. Well, the hyperreactivity of the system appears to be compromised in the fluidic transference. Translation. I dropped a wrench in there and now it won't start. And then you've got the academic costume. These folks love it. Pile up enough books behind them, get a pair of glasses, and suddenly they're a genius. They'll sit there surrounded by a wall of books they never read, nodding like they're soaking in the wisdom through osmosis. And when they speak, it's always in references. As Kierkegaard once said, no one cares what Kierkegaard said. He's been dead for 150 years, and he never had to program a VCR. What do his problems have to do with yours? People think quoting a dead guy makes them smart. All it really makes them is unoriginal. You know what smart really is? Smart is curiosity. Smart is asking questions. Smart is admitting you don't know. But nobody wants to do that, because we live in a world where saying I don't know is seen as weakness. So instead they play dress up. They pretend. They use the big words, the fancy tone, the costume of intelligence, and hope nobody notices the emperor has no brain. And most of the time, nobody does. Because everybody else is pretending too. That's the real joke. It's not just 1 or 2 people faking it. It's everybody, all at once, nodding and smiling, pretending they understand each other. It's like a play where the script is written in invisible ink. And it's not just individuals, it's whole groups. It's whole groups. You put 10 people in a meeting, and suddenly you've got a competition for who can sound the smartest while saying the least. They'll use phrases like a moving forward and a thinking outside the box. Thinking outside the box. Half these people can't even find the damn box. But they'll say it with a straight face, and everyone else will nod like they've just heard the secrets of the universe. That's the theater of intelligence. Nothing gets done, but everyone feels like they just climbed Mount Olympus. The truth is, most people don't want knowledge. They want the appearance of knowledge. Knowledge takes work, time, patience, humility. Appearance takes a thesaurus and a good act. And in a world where most people are looking at you for 5 minutes, appearance always wins. So the costume stays on. And nobody wants to take it off. Because once you do, you're just another naked human being who doesn't know what the hell is going on. And that's too scary for most people. So they keep dressing up their ignorance with big words, dressing up their confusion with long sentences, dressing up their insecurities with fake intelligence. And after a while, they forget it's a costume. They believe it themselves. That's the funniest part of all. When the actors don't know they're acting anymore, they really think the words make them smart. But they don't. Because intelligence isn't in the costume, it's in the clarity. And clarity doesn't need to dress up. That's why I always say, if you want to know who's really smart, don't listen to the guy using the biggest words. Listen to the guy who can explain it in the simplest way. That's the one who actually knows. Everyone else? They're just wearing the costume, waiting for applause. You ever notice how people love to brag about their diplomas? Oh, they love that piece of paper. They hang it on the wall, frame it in oak, shine a light on it like it's the Mona Lisa. And then they stand back and admire it. as if that rectangle of parchment is going to do their thinking for them. People parade their diplomas like peacocks flashing their feathers. Look at me, I went to school. Look at me, I sat in a room for 4 years listening to a guy with a tie. Look at me, I memorized enough to pass the test. Congratulations, you trained your brain the way a dog learns to roll over. You got a biscuit, only your biscuit cost 50 grand. And people act like the diploma makes them an authority on everything. You could be at a barbecue, arguing about hot dogs, and some guy will lean back and say, well, I have a degree in economics. Yeah, and what does that have to do with mustard? But people think once you've got that piece of paper, it gives you a golden ticket to sound smart about everything. They'll bring it up at the strangest times, too. As someone with a degree in history, I can tell you that this dip is guacamole, not salsa. They just want to remind you they paid tuition. It's not about knowledge, it's about status. Now, don't get me wrong, education can be a wonderful thing. Learning is great. Expanding your mind is great. But a diploma isn't proof of intelligence, it's proof you followed instructions. That's what school really is. Follow directions, repeat information. Fill in bubbles, and at the end you get a piece of paper. It's a reward system. They could save a lot of time if they just handed out diplomas in kindergarten. Give the kid a gold star and a certificate. Tell him to hang it up for the rest of his life. Because half the adults are still bragging about things they learned in high school anyway. And the way people worship certain schools, it's like a religion. Oh, I went to Harvard. Oh, really? Did you go to Harvard or did your dad's checkbook go to Harvard? Let's be honest. Some people got into those schools because they were smart, but a lot of them got in because they knew somebody, or because their family paid for a new library. You think that guy in the blazer with the last name that sounds like a law firm got in on merit? Please. That diploma was purchased, not earned. But they'll walk around with it like it's a crown, like it proves they're destined for greatness. Meanwhile, some guy who fixed your car without ever going to college might be smarter than all of them put together. He just doesn't have a fancy Latin certificate to hang above his couch. And the ceremony itself, oh, the diploma parade. That big graduation day where everybody's in gowns and hats, they make it feel like the Olympics. You walk across the stage, shake a hand, and get a rolled-up piece of paper tied with ribbon. And everybody claps like you just cured polio. You didn't cure anything. You finished homework. That's what you did. You showed up long enough to get a degree. And half the time, people don't even work in the field they studied. I have a degree in medieval literature. Oh, good, that'll come in handy at the gas station. Or I majored in philosophy. Perfect. You're now fully qualified to argue with the waiter about whether the soup is half full or half empty. But they love it. They love the show. Families show up with cameras, people throw their hats in the air, and for a brief moment everyone believes that the paper means something permanent. But give it a few years, and that diploma ends up in the attic, collecting dust next to the yearbooks and the prom shoes. Until then, though, people will milk it for all it's worth. They'll bring it up in conversation every chance they get. Well, during my time at university. Yeah, back when you were drinking beer out of a shoe and trying to figure out how to do laundry. Don't make it sound like you were solving world hunger. And people love the titles that come with it. Oh, they love those. Doctor, professor, master, bachelor, they sound so fancy. I'm a master of science. I'm a master of science? What are you, a wizard? Do you cast spells with your calculator? I'm a doctor of philosophy. That's nice. Can you write me a prescription for some meaning in my life? People worship the titles more than the knowledge itself. It's not about what they learn, it's about what they can put on their business card. And then there are the parents who brag about their kids' diplomas like they won the lottery. My son is going to be a lawyer? Oh, wonderful, another guy in a suit charging people by the hour to fill out forms. My daughter has a degree in architecture. Terrific, now she can design a building nobody can afford to live in. The parents love it because they can brag to the neighbors. It's never about the kid, it's about the status symbol. Johnny went to Yale. Yeah, and our Johnny still can't change a tire. But he's got that Yale diploma, so he must be brilliant. The whole system's a business anyway. You pay a mountain of money, they give you a paper, and everybody pretends it's priceless. But the schools know the game. That's why they charge you for everything. You want to learn? Buy the book. You want to sit in class? Pay the fee. You want to graduate? Rent the cap and gown. That's right, rent it. They don't even let you keep the robe. For all the money you gave them, the least they could do is let you keep the damn costume. But no, you've got to give it back, like a tuxedo from the prom. Because they know the gown isn't the product, the diploma is. That's the prize. That's the trophy, that's the parade float. And the crazy part is, some of the smartest people in history never had a diploma. You think Shakespeare had a diploma? You think Edison had a diploma? You think Mark Twain sat in a classroom filling out multiple choice tests? No, they were too busy doing things, learning by living. Meanwhile, there are people today with 10 diplomas who couldn't invent a paperclip if their lives depended on it. But they've got walls full of framed proof that they can memorize and repeat, so they strut around like geniuses. And don't get me wrong, school can teach you valuable things. But you don't need a diploma to prove you learned them. A diploma just proves you paid attention long enough not to flunk out. And sometimes not even that. Sometimes it just proves you paid the bill. The diploma is like a receipt. That's all it is. It says, "Thank you for your purchase. Knowledge not included." But people cling to them because they're terrified of being ordinary. They think if they've got a diploma, it separates them from the crowd. I'm not just some regular schmuck, I'm an educated schmucka. It's all part of the act. The costume of intelligence, dressed up this time in caps and gowns, tassels and titles. And it works because society plays along. Employers look at the paper instead of the person. Families brag about the paper instead of the character. Strangers respect the paper more than the actual ability. The paper runs the show. But here's the truth nobody likes to admit. The diploma doesn't make the person smart. The person makes the diploma look like it matters. And most of the time, the diploma is just sitting there on the wall, quietly mocking everyone who thinks it's the key to wisdom. Because wisdom doesn't hang on the wall. It walks around in the way you treat people, in the way you solve problems, in the way you live your life. But that's not as shiny, so people stick with the paper. So the parade goes on. Every year, more gowns, more hats, more speeches about the future, more diplomas handed out like candy. And every year, another wave of people walk away convinced that their piece of paper means they're smarter than the rest of the world. But the world doesn't care about your diploma. The world cares if you can actually do something. And half the time, the guy without the diploma is the one who knows what he's doing. Which is why I say, never be too impressed by the diploma parade. Because at the end of the day, it's just a parade. And when the music stops and the crowd goes home, all that's left is you and your paper trying to prove it means more than it does. You ever notice how people think owning a piece of technology makes them smarter? Oh, they love that game. They buy some new shiny gadget and suddenly they're walking around like they're Thomas Edison with a side of Einstein. You put a smartphone in somebody's hand and overnight they think they're a scholar, a doctor, and a private investigator. They don't know anything, but they've got a little screen in their pocket that pretends to know everything, and they think that makes them intelligent by association. It's like standing next to a library and believing the books have crawled into your head. The funniest part is people don't even use the technology to learn. No, they use it to copy and paste. They read half a sentence off a website and then repeat it at a party like they've been studying it their whole life. Well, actually, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Thank you, Professor Copy and Paste. Did you figure that out yourself, or did you just scroll past it in your cousin's homework notes? People don't learn anymore. They just borrow. Borrow fact here, a headline there, a statistic from a magazine they didn't read, and suddenly they're walking encyclopedias. Only problem is the pages are missing, and the index is upside down. And you can always tell when someone's about to drop a tech-fueled fact bomb. They get this look on their face. This smug little grin like they're about to enlighten you with the wisdom of the ages. And then out it comes, word for word. Exactly the way it appeared on some article they barely skimmed. Or did you know that 70% of brain function occurs in the... And then they forget the rest. Because that's what happens when your intelligence is on loan from a device. You never make the payment. You ever notice how people use technology to inflate their intelligence in the dumbest conversations? You could be talking about weather, and someone will pull out their phone and go, "Well, according to the Doppler radar, there's a 40% chance of precipitation." Just say it might rain, you pompous ass. Technology has given people too many excuses to complicate the simple. Instead of saying, "I'm lost," they say, "My global positioning system is temporarily recalibrating." No, buddy, you took the wrong turn at the gas station. Don't make it sound like NASA's working on your road trip. And you ever notice people treat gadgets like magic? They don't understand how anything works, but they believe that owning it makes them an expert. They'll tap on a screen, swipe a button, and then act like they invented it. Look at this app. It tells you your heart rate. Oh yeah, you know what else tells you your heart rate? Your damn pulse. Put 2 fingers on your wrist. But no, they need a $200 gadget to confirm that they're alive, because once it comes from a device, it feels official. Technology has turned everyone into instant know-it-alls. You used to have to admit you didn't know something. That was part of being human. Somebody would ask, "Hey, who won the World Series in 1962? And you'd shrug and say, "I don't know," and that was the end of it. Now, nobody says, "I don't know." They just whip out a phone, and 5 seconds later, they're an expert on the 1962 Yankees. And they say it with authority, like they were sitting in the dugout that season. No, the Yankees, of course. Mantle hit 30 home runs, shut up. You didn't know that 2 minutes ago. You borrowed it, and you're going to forget it in another 2 minutes when the battery dies. But people act like the access to information is the same as intelligence. It's not. Knowing how to look something up the same as knowing. If it were, librarians would be running the world. But they don't, because librarians actually know the difference between storage and understanding. People today don't. They think being able to recite random trivia means they're educated. No, it means you've got Wi-Fi. And the gadgets themselves have become the trophies of intelligence. People flash them around like they're diplomas. You ever notice that? They don't just use the phone, they make sure you see the phone. And they, "Oh, excuse me, let me just check this on my device," and they always... Not a phone, a device. Sounds smarter that way. Like they're holding some kind of government prototype instead of the same plastic toy every other schmuck on the bus has. They'll tilt it, show off the brand name, let the light catch it just right, and then look around the room waiting for admiration. Yes, behold my intelligence. It fits in my pocket. And the way people talk about technology, you'd think it was sacred. This app changed my life. No, it didn't. It reminded you to drink water. You could have done that with a glass and common sense. But no, people need the gadget to validate their choices. They need the tech to tell them they're smart. They'll say, "I use this app to track my steps." How about this? You walked. You don't need a digital pedometer to confirm it. Just look at your feet. If they're sore, you probably walked enough. Technology also gives people this false sense of accomplishment. They think because they Googled something, they've contributed. Research this. No, you didn't. You typed a question into a search bar. Real research takes effort. It takes patience. It takes comparing sources, reading deeply, thinking critically. People today think research means scrolling through the first 3 results and picking whichever one sounds like it agrees with them. That's not research. That's shopping for opinions. But they call it research because it makes them sound like experts. And you ever notice how technology lets people fake knowledge in conversations they would have been shut out of before? Back in the day, if you didn't know about art, you kept your mouth shut. Now, someone asks about Picasso, and in 30 seconds you're quoting something about Cubism like you were in the studio with the guy. And everybody nods like you've been studying art history for years. But if someone unplugged the Wi-Fi, you'd be back to doodling stick figures. The funniest thing is when people start to believe the machine makes them smarter by osmosis. They think if they're holding a gadget, they must be intelligent. Like carrying around a calculator makes you a mathematician, or buying a telescope makes you an astronomer, or downloading a language app makes you bilingual. No, it doesn't. You're not bilingual, you're just repeating phrases into a phone. Try going to Paris and ordering dinner with that knowledge. You'll end up eating the napkin. And people love to brag about their gadgets like they invented them. This phone has a 16-megapixel camera. Oh, really? Did you build it? Did you solder the chips together? No, you stood in line and gave a teenager at the store your credit card. You didn't invent anything. You purchased it, and now you think you're part of the development team. Oh, cool. Way they designed the interface. They didn't design it for you, pal. They designed it to take your money. Then you fell for it. Congratulations. What's even better is when people use technology to measure their intelligence against others. Whoa, you're still using that model. Mine has the new processor. Oh, does it? And does that make you smarter or just dumber with faster updates? People act like the newer the gadget, the higher their IQ. Meanwhile, they still can't program the clock on their microwave, but they've got the latest phone, so they're geniuses. And the dependency is hilarious. You take the gadget away and people are helpless. They can't add, they can't spell, they can't remember a phone number. They're stranded without their toys. That's not intelligence, that's dependence. If your brain shuts down when your battery does, you're not smart. You're just temporarily powered. But people don't see it that way. They see the device as an extension of themselves. This is who I am. No, that's what you bought. Who you are is still confused and slightly lost. Technology has become a costume, just like the big words and the diplomas. It's another way to pretend to be smarter than you are. And it works because everybody else is pretending too. Everyone nods when you quote something you just looked up. Everyone's impressed when you flash the newest gadget. Everyone believes you know something because you're holding a screen. It's a collective illusion, a group performance where nobody wants to admit the trick. But here's the truth. Technology doesn't make you smart. It makes you efficient, maybe. It makes you fast. It makes you connected. But smart? No. Smart is knowing how to think without the machine. Smart is solving the problem when the battery dies. Smart is remembering something because it mattered, not because you bookmarked it. That kind of smart doesn't come from a gadget. It comes from you. But people don't want to hear that, because it means they'd have to take responsibility for their own minds. So they keep flashing the toys, quoting the trivia, and pretending the trap is intelligence. And the trap works because once you start relying on the machine for your smarts, you stop developing your own. You let the gadget do the heavy lifting, and after a while, your brain forgets how to pick up the weight. That's the danger of the technology trap. It doesn't just fool others, it fools you. You start to believe you're as smart as the screen in your pocket. And then one day you realize you're not. You're just a person carrying a costume, waiting for applause. You ever notice how people will believe just about anything, as long as it saves them the trouble of actually having to think? Thinking is hard. Thinking requires energy. People don't like energy unless it's in the form of a cheeseburger or a remote control. The human brain, for all the bragging we do about it, is basically a lazy roommate. It'll do just enough to keep you alive, and then it wants to sit around in sweatpants and watch reruns of Gilligan's Island. And because of that, people cling to beliefs like a life raft. Beliefs are easy, thinking is work. And if there's one thing people don't want to do, it's work, especially mental work. That's why people say, I don't want to think about it right now. You ever hear that? I just don't want to think about it. They treat thinking like it's a root canal. Like thinking is some kind of punishment. Don't make me think. I've had a long day. You sat in a chair and stared at a screen for 8 hours, Karen, you're not digging coal. But people act like pondering a thought is going to give them a hernia. That's why they love belief. Belief doesn't require a process. It doesn't require testing, weighing, comparing, observing. No, belief is instant soup for the mind. Just add gullibility, stir, and you've got a warm bowl of comfort to sip on. Delicious. You tell people, hey, maybe this idea isn't true, maybe we should check with it. And they look at you like you just suggested burning down their childhood home. No, I believe it. I don't need to check. I believe. Belief is the mental equivalent of putting your feet up. It's lazy, but it feels good. It's like putting on slippers for your brain. It doesn't matter if those slippers smell like a dead raccoon. People will keep wearing them because they're comfy. And comfort always beats truth. Always. That's why the world is full of folks who believe in lucky charms, fortune tellers, palm readers, horoscopes, miracle cures, magic diets, and little rituals to make sure the parking spot opens up. People will do anything, believe anything, as long as it keeps them from the heavy lifting of thought. You ever notice how much people want shortcuts? They want the shortcut to success, the shortcut to love, the shortcut to money, the shortcut to health. And the shortcut they love most? The shortcut to understanding. Why figure it out when you can just believe it? It's faster. Thinking is slow, but believing is instant gratification. And if there's one thing people love more than comfort, it's instant gratification. Look at superstition. Whole industries are built on it. Lucky numbers, lucky socks, lucky rabbit's feet. First of all, what did the rabbit get out of this deal? He sure as hell didn't get lucky. And people carry this thing around, rubbing it, petting it, whispering to it like it's going to open up the doors of fortune. Why? Because thinking about why life is unpredictable, or why luck even exists, or why the universe doesn't give a damn about you, that's uncomfortable. It keeps you up at night. And people don't want discomfort, they want a rabbit's foot. A little talisman of nonsense that reassures them. But don't worry, your special good things are coming. And belief doesn't even need evidence. Evidence? Who needs evidence when you've got conviction? People think conviction is a substitute for proof. They figure if they feel it strongly enough, it must be real. I just feel it in my heart. Well, your heart is a blood pump, not a Ouija board, but people love that line. I just feel it. Yeah, you also feel like you're going to stick to that diet, and we all know how that turned out. But belief has no quality control. None. It's all based on comfort. Does it make me feel better? Yes. Then I'll believe it. Doesn't matter if it's absurd. Doesn't matter if it defies logic. Doesn't matter if it goes against everything we've learned for centuries. If it makes me feel good, I'll buy it. And notice it's always about feeling good. Beliefs are security blankets for grown-ups. People clutch them, wrap themselves in them, and refuse to let go. Even if the blanket is full of holes and smells like mildew, they're not letting go. Because without it, they'd be cold and exposed to reality. And nobody likes reality. Reality is rough. Reality tells you that life is random, people are selfish. Things don't always work out, and the universe doesn't care whether you get a raise or not. Belief swoops in like a warm, fluffy pillow. Don't worry, it's all going to work out. You're special, you're chosen, you're lucky, you're destined. It's lullabies for adults. That's why every time you challenge someone's belief, they don't argue the facts, they argue their feelings. They say, well, it makes me feel better. That's the defense, not it's true. Not here's the evidence. No, just it makes me feel better. That's it. And if that's the standard, then anything goes. If it makes you feel better, it's valid. Hey, heroin makes you feel better too. Should we all start shooting up? It makes me feel better, that's the logic. Anything that spares the mind a little effort, people will believe. And you know what else? People confuse believing with understanding. That's the sneaky part. When people say, I believe it, what they really mean is, I don't understand it, but I don't want to admit that, so I'll just believe it instead. Oh, belief is the duct tape you slap on the cracks of your knowledge. Don't understand how the stars move, just believe they're guiding your love life. Don't understand how your body works. Just believe this juice cleanse will detoxify your spirit. Don't understand economics. Just believe the lottery is your ticket to freedom. Belief fills the gaps. And people love filling gaps. Empty space makes them nervous. You can see it in everyday life. People believe their lucky pen will help them pass a test. People believe carrying crystals will heal them. People believe blowing out candles on a cake will grant wishes. People believe in birthday luck, wedding luck, New Year's luck, Friday luck, Monday luck, coin luck. Every day of the week, some luck. The whole calendar is a superstition factory. And you ask them, why do you believe this? They shrug. I don't know, I just do. That's the answer, they don't know. They don't care, they just believe. Because thinking would require them to question, to analyze, to possibly accept an answer they don't like. That's the real fear. People aren't afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of the truth being unpleasant. They want pleasant lies. The truth is too raw, too cold, too jagged. Beliefs come wrapped in bubble wrap. Beliefs come with sprinkles. Beliefs pat you on the back and tell you everything's fine. And people eat that up. They'd rather chew on a sweet lie than choke on a bitter truth. You ever try giving someone a bitter truth? They spit it out instantly. But hand them a frosted, sugar-coated belief, and they'll swallow the whole thing in one bite. Yum! Delicious delusion. And the crazy part is people don't even admit they're being lazy. They act like belief is noble, like it's virtuous. I just believe they say it proudly, as if refusing to think is some kind of achievement. Belief gets turned into a badge of honor. Meanwhile, actual thinking gets brushed off. You tell someone, well, I researched it, I studied it, I tested it. And they look at you like you're a nerd who wasted his time. Oh, you think too much. That's the insult, you think too much. As if using the very organ that separates us from the goats is a flaw. Imagine saying to a carpenter, you hammer too much, or to a chef, you cook too much. But with the brain, suddenly too much use is a problem. People want the brain for simple tasks only. Just enough to order food, complain about traffic, and remember the theme song to the Brady Bunch. Beyond that, it's too much strain. They want the mind to run on autopilot. And belief is the perfect autopilot. It tells you, don't worry, no need to check, no need to verify, no need to doubt. Just believe, sit back and relax. And people say, oh great, sounds good to me. Because thinking is like jogging for the mind. And people don't like jogging either. They like the idea of jogging, they like the image of themselves jogging. But when it comes to actually doing it, suddenly their shoes don't fit. Belief is mental junk food. Easy, tasty, zero nutrition. And notice how nobody ever says, I believe 2 + 2 is 4. You don't need to believe it. You know it. Belief only pops up where knowledge is absent. Belief fills in where evidence is missing. You never hear someone say, I believe my car has 4 tires. No, you go outside and look. But when it comes to the things people don't want to check, suddenly belief is enough. I believe it. And the conversation ends. Belief is the conversation stopper. It's the big red stop sign for thought. Once belief enters, thinking exits. And people prefer it that way. Less hassle, less responsibility. Because here's the truth. Belief is a form of outsourcing. People outsource their thinking. Just like they outsource their laundry, their cooking, their child rearing. Thinking is the last thing people want to do for themselves. They'd rather farm it out to someone else. But tell me what to believe. And there's always someone ready to provide the service. Always someone with a shiny smile, a nice suit, and a handful of nonsense to sell. And people line up for it because it's easier than thinking. Always easier. And the end result? Planet full of people who think they know things when all they've really done is rent a belief. They've signed a lease on an idea because it was cozy and cheap. And they'll hold on to it until it collapses around them. But even then, they won't stop. They'll just move into the next belief, the next comforting delusion, the next easy answer. Because comfort beats truth every time. Comfort is king. That's why people believe the silliest things.